News, of course, that we brought you just a little while ago. Shamima Begum has lost her appeal against the decision to remove her British citizenship, which means she will not be returning to these shores. An awful lot of people very pleased with that decision, and thank goodness the Supreme Court has come to that conclusion. So she basically is a stateless individual, and she will have to stay where she is, which is in a refugee camp somewhere in Syria. Let's talk to Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian, broadcaster and senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. Rafe, I think we were all dreading this going the wrong way and suddenly being responsible for this ghastly individual. Seemingly the Supreme Court has seen the light.
Yes, you know, we've become so used to being disappointed by our institutions these days that, you know, we were sort of worrying how this would go. But it's good to see this decision made. And in fact, on every step along this process, Shamima Begum has been thwarted by the courts and by the government. So we have to actually take our hats off there. The important thing also to note here is that there's a lot of information that we don't know, stuff that is private and only being released in these private discussions. The security services still regarded Shamima Begum as a genuine security risk, and I think that is one of the predominant factors behind this. And this has happened despite the media trying to rehabilitate Shamima Begum and turn her into some sort of reality TV celebrity. Yeah. We've seen these very soft articles about her in recent months. We've had the BBC giving her own podcast. Quite disgraceful, actually, yes, when you consider that, how little attention has been given to the victims of ISIS. Right. Give one of the perpetrators of their cruelty on such a platform is quite despicable.
Well, so exactly. And also many of the people who sort of champion Shamima talk about her being groomed practically, which was not something even her lawyers thought up until relatively recently. You know, she's previously admitted to enjoying what she did. She's previously admitted to harming all sorts of people who were the victims of ISIS who ended up dead. She's also responsible for the shaming and the terrible treatment of some of the Yazidi women. She's championed by some feminists in this country who don't seem to care about that. You know, I mean, I just think that she is somebody who has changed her mind so many times whenever it suited her in order to try and get her life back. And, I mean, I don't think she deserves it.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, people say, oh, well, she was a young teenager when she went out there. Actually, in 2019, when she was first interviewed, first discovered in the refugee camp, she was already 20 years old by that point. And she said she had no regrets about joining ISIS. Yeah. It was only once her British citizenship became perilous for her that she suddenly changed her tune, yes, and adopted Western dress. So let's remember that. And as you quite rightly say, to all those bleeding heart liberals out there who are upset by this injustice, you know, save your tears for those poor Yazidi women who, yes, are enslaved, kept as sex slaves. Think about all of those people tortured, set on fire, beheaded. Yes. Let's be honest about what was going on in these places whilst she stood by, and think of all of their families mourning the loss of their dearly loved ones today. Those are the ones who we should be reaching out to, yeah, rather than someone like this.
Exactly right. And I know you're not a lawyer, Rafe, but is there a place for her to go after this? The Supreme Court is obviously the highest court in the land in this country, but can she take this to Europe?
Well, no, I don't think she can take this to Europe, but it's important to remember that you can't take citizenship away from someone and leave them stateless. Yeah. Now, by virtue of her ancestry and her parents, she can actually claim, and she does have, by virtue of descent, Bangladeshi citizenship. But the problem there is if she goes to Bangladesh, she will face the death penalty, yes, for her ISIS affiliations, something which I think people here should actually realise what a light touch Britain is compared to other countries.
Exactly. And of course, we've also heard this morning that, you know, if she wanted to have citizenship in Bangladesh, she should have applied by the time she was 21, and she's no longer under that particular age. But if she does remain stateless, then I guess she just has to stay in this refugee camp, does she?
Exactly. You know, or go to Syria if she can, if they'll have her there. I mean, this is it. She's stuck. You know, she's made her bed, and now, unfortunately, it's a refugee camp bed, and she has to basically be happy and content. But it comes to a broader issue, because there are lots of people who went to Syria with ISIS from Britain, extremists who are radicalised and went to fight there, who only have British citizenship, who have come back and pose a genuine security risk. Because, as I say, you cannot take away citizenship from people if they will be left stateless. It's an important part of the UN. Yeah. Now, I've previously argued that, we have various types of British citizenship, one of which is British subject status or British overseas territory status even. So I think it would be worthwhile seeing whether all of these people who've been engaged in terrorist activities and fighting in Syria for ISIS could have their citizenship tweaked so that they retain British subject status but don't have the right of abode in the UK, and they'll be forced to stay on the continent or wherever they are.
Interesting. Terry in Ramsbottom says something interesting here. Shamima Begum isn't stateless. She's a citizen of Islamic State. If you can be a citizen of the EU, which isn't a country, then she can also be a citizen of Islamic State. I wonder if we can make that argument.
Well, that's a very good point. I think that would somehow validate their claims to being a state, though. So I think
it might do. I suppose you'd have to be a bit careful. Yeah, the Levant or something like that. Rafe, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian, broadcaster, senior fellow at the New Culture Forum there, giving his view on the very sensible decision. Isn't it nice to say that the Supreme Court, the judiciary in this country, has actually got something right? They've made the right decision. They have denied Shamima Begum the right to return to this country and to have British citizenship. They've said she cannot have it. They have refused her appeal, and I say, bloody well done. This is Talk TV.